I'm Jack Hemingway. Welcome to Incredible Idaho. We've all heard the stories about loss of wildlife, loss of habitat, loss of hunting and fishing opportunity. Today we're going to have some good news. We're going to talk about some gains. In recent years, state wildlife agencies around the nation have been getting into the trading business. Recently, Washington and Oregon have made us a gift of 900 geese and goslings to establish new nesting territory in the panhandle of North Idaho. This pine marten was one of 16 Idaho traded to South Dakota in exchange for wild turkeys. These wild turkeys from North Dakota were swapped for California bighorns from Idaho's booming population in the Owyhee Desert. For the second year in a row, the Colorado Division of Wildlife and the Idaho Department of Fish and Game have collaborated on a transaction called Operation Osprey. It seems to be a win-win situation. Expanding healthy populations of a species into new or historical habitat provides an insurance if the original population suffers a catastrophic loss.
Populations are doing very well in Idaho, so I think it's a good opportunity to help our neighboring states to try and reestablish populations there.
Okay, Omar.
All right, Omar.
Last summer, 10 nestlings were transported from Idaho to the Fort Collins area of Colorado. They were 6 weeks old. In less than 10 days, they'll attempt to fly.
These bands are U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service bands.
It's that time of their life where they start recognizing the area in which they normally would be hatched, and that's the area they have a tendency to come back to. So when you move them to a site and release them like that, they'll have a tendency to come back to the Fort Collins area.
These are your new nest mates here, Guy.
Colorado raptor biologist Jerry Craig reports on last year's transplant.
Great, they were a hit. We had one that liked it so much, stayed well into late September when the others had migrated out.
The young osprey migrate to west central Mexico in the Caribbean. Unlike most birds, they remain in the wintering ground for a full year and return as adults.
It's hard to have to wait 2 years to see the results. Everybody's asking, are they back? And they won't come back until next year. The package hasn't been opened yet. We're still excited about what's going to happen.
Biologists estimate that 200 to 300 pair of osprey nest in the panhandle of North Idaho. This summer, the Colorado team returned to Coeur d'Alene Lake to join Idaho Fish and Game biologists for the second phase of Operation Osprey.
What I'm going to do is probably swing a little more this way so our boat's in line with this side.
For osprey that are successful at nesting, an average of 2 fledglings are hatched each year, although several of these nests may have had up to 4.
We generally try to take one from a nest, but we felt that it's probably a good idea to try and take maybe in a couple cases some siblings, and we can maybe understand a little bit of relationship of sibling bonds. And then also when you take maybe 2 from a nest, their age is very close too, so it helps in the release process. The important thing is that we always want to leave one bird in a nest, at least one bird in a nest.
Osprey are fairly traditional about returning to the same nest year after year. The remaining fledgling keeps this tie established, preventing the adults from abandoning the nesting site. Except for the length of the tail and wing feathers, this young bird is actually the size of an adult. Even at this age, it will eat up to 2 8-inch fish a day.
If you look at the feet, you'll see it's got like an opposable toe there. So essentially 2 toes can go back and 2 toes forward. You see the flexibility of this toe right here. It allows it to grasp the fish better. You look also underneath the toes, you see it's very rough. That, of course, with slippery fish, helps it hold on to the fish easier too. So it's really got some adaptations for what it's supposed to do, and that is to catch fish.
This young osprey, along with 11 others, will begin testing its fishing skills somewhere near Fort Collins. And perhaps 3 years from now, it too will be raising young. A pioneer in a new territory on the Colorado Plateau. The Colorado biologists report that the hack sites were opened at the end of July to allow the young birds to test their wings. All 12 of the young ospreys are now flying.
Hi, Guy.
From school children to scientists, the dinosaurs and their disappearance from the earth poses an intriguing mystery. Nothing in modern animal life evokes as much fascination as this subject. But somewhere between the dinosaur age and modern times, a creature was lost. Here in Idaho, the ancient white sturgeon still cruises our rivers. Not much changed from the primitive creatures that spawned it. At one time, the Columbia River system included the free-flowing snake in the Kootenai rivers. Some 10,000 years ago, the Kootenai took a turn and broke off, an accident of nature. Man changed the lower snake, damming it 4 times, beginning in 1901 at Swan Falls and ending with the construction of Hell's Canyon Dam in 1968. The sturgeon in the Snake River were dammed too. Caught between large walls of concrete, they were destined to live in isolated pockets, no longer free to roam the length of the Columbia River system. For thousands of years, there was no need for the sturgeon to evolve. They had developed to a point where they were a successful species, until now. The last century has seen a sharp decline in the Idaho sturgeon populations. Damming the river is one factor, but overfishing too contributed to the sturgeon's demise. No longer do anglers talk of catches such as the one John Cooper Giesler recorded in a letter to his daughter in 1929.
The big fish was caught in the spring of 1883 in the Snake River. I took this big fellow off the line, alone about midnight on a bright moonlit night. When his enormous head came even with the surface, I landed a hard blow between the eyes with a small axe. He measured 17 feet overall and was 22 inches between the eyes. I believe this is the largest sturgeon ever caught in the Snake River.
These days, a 10-foot sturgeon is a rare catch. But although the future of the Snake River sturgeon appears bleak, the decline of the Kootenai sturgeon is a much more immediate problem.
The Kootenai River sturgeon haven't shown any evidence of reproduction over the last 15 years.
As a result, in 1984, the Kootenai sturgeon population was closed to harvest. It joined the Snake River in becoming a catch and release fishery for sturgeon.
I got it.
Kim Apperson and her crew have been marking and then tracking these big fish on the Kootenai. The sturgeon are caught on set lines with barbless hooks.
Well, we could narrow it down to 3 potential problems where the bottleneck is. Either the fish are not spawning, or there's some problems with juvenile rearing habitat perhaps, or we were concerned about contaminants actually rendering the eggs non-viable. Hi, Guy. We've collected plenty of information. We have a pretty good idea of behavior and migration patterns throughout the year, other than in the springtime during spawning.
Sturgeon eggs, in the later stages of development, were recovered from the Kootenai River this spring. This is the first evidence of natural spawning, but this spring also marks the highest flows on the Kootenai since Libby Dam went into operation in 1972. If there has been spawning other years, there's been no survival.
Once they're on their back, they're pretty docile, and that way we can keep them in this hooded stretcher, which keeps them quiet and keeps some water in it so they can continue to gill throughout the handling process. We're going to surgically sex it by making a small incision on the ventral side here. We can take a peek inside and determine whether it's male or female, and also determine what stage of the reproductive cycle it's in.
This is critical information. This year, the biologists are looking for more besides natural spawning patterns. They're searching for sturgeon to artificially spawn. With funding provided by the Bonneville Power Administration, a new sturgeon hatchery was built on the Kootenai River.
It's a male. It's a male, but probably not going to reproduce this year.
The incision is stitched up, a numbered tag is attached to a fin, and a computer chip is injected into the fish. This is called a PIT tag, or Passive Integrated Transponder. In future years, if the biologists catch this fish again, there's a good chance the external tag will long be gone. But scientists will still be able to identify this individual sturgeon by passing a detector over the computer chip.
We're going to inject it with oxytetracycline, which is an antibiotic commonly used in veterinary practices. It'll help the fish recover from the stress of the surgery.
Sturgeon can live to be 100 years old. This 4-foot sturgeon is somewhere around 20 to 25 years old, but he's not a keeper.
This spring, we were targeting fish for broodstock for the hatchery here. And we were after females and males that were very ripe, ready to spawn.
Here he goes.
Later in the spring, 2 males and a female were caught that fit the criteria. Studies have shown that the female won't spawn naturally until she's in high river flows, so the eggs are taken surgically.
We make a 4-inch incision in the body cavity, and then we go in and take a plastic spoon and put the spoon in there and extract the eggs out of the female.
The eggs are fertilized with sperm from the 2 males. After about 12 days of incubation, the eggs hatch.
And as you can see, they're doing quite well. The total spawn was 68,000, and we have a little over 14,000 larvae on hand now.
The experimental hatchery is cooperatively run by the Kootenai Indian Tribe and the Idaho Department of Fish and Game. Their plans are to try and jumpstart the Kootenai sturgeon population.
The ideal situation is a wild fish population maintaining themselves. But if you don't have it and they're going out, you've got to do something to bring the population back up.
The day we visited the hatchery, the 2 males were released back into the Kootenai River.
There he goes. Bye, guy.
When her incision is completely healed, the female too will be released. In another 6 to 8 years, she should be ready to spawn again, perhaps this time in the wild.
If it smells done, it's done. If it smells burned, it's burned. If you can't smell, it's not done.
It was an essential item for the wagon trains heading west. Traders from Holland had brought large quantities for barter with the Indians and frontier people. Mountain man John Coulter had one. To this day, the Dutch oven is considered the key to great outdoor cooking. And when you spend most of your working hours patrolling the backcountry like Fish and Game Officer Butch Welch, a Dutch oven means the difference between eating out of a can and a real meal.
What we're about to cook here is some barbecued elk ribs. I've got a little bit of salad oil in there, and I'm sauteing some garlic before I let my meat brown. Gonna lay some of these elk ribs in here, let them brown up. Now, of course, elk ribs are about the toughest cut there is on an elk. They need to be cooked long and slow. Yeah, you can pack just about everything you want in a Dutch oven. On this one, we're gonna fill it up with liquid and let it simmer. I use beer for my rib recipe. The beer adds a little bit of flavor, and sometimes that's all I've had in camp to cook with. We'll just put the lid on and let her simmer. And to speed the cooking, we'll add a few briquettes here on the top. If I'm not out in the woods, of course, I'll use a fire and just wood coals. Here I use charcoal. Okay, our next dish today is going to be Dutch oven baked potatoes, and we're going to use the big 16-inch Dutch oven here. And what we're going to do is I've got a bowl of river rocks. We've washed out. We're going to throw those on the bottom of the Dutch. Going to add just enough water to cover the rocks, not like that. The purpose of the rocks now are just to keep the potatoes off the bottom of the Dutch and burn. Once we get on the charcoal, it's going to take just about an hour or maybe a little bit more, and we'll have river baked potatoes. In order to be more efficient, we're going to deck our Dutch ovens. Okay, now we have our potatoes on the bottom, elk ribs on the top. Okay, what we're going to do next is we've got a recipe here that we're going to stuff some Cornish game hens, cook them in the Dutch oven, and we're just going to go ahead and get them ready. I've got a small onion and I stuck a clove in that for flavoring, and then we're going to just have some rice that we're going to stuff in the body cavity. We'll just lay that right there in the Dutch. If you didn't have a Dutch oven, you'd be hard pressed to, you know, cook this in tin foil. Okay, now for cooking liquid on this, we're going to use a dry white wine. About half a bottle is about right for a 14-inch Dutch oven. Well, the ribs have been going for about an hour now. Let's take a look at them and see how they look. Excellent. See how the meat's starting to pull away from the bones. That shows that they're getting cooked, and when these ribs are fully cooked, those bones will just slip right out. So now what we've got the 16-inch Dutch oven on the bottom with our baked potatoes. We'll put our birds there. We're just going to take the 12 now. We'll add it to our stack here. So starting from the bottom, baked potatoes, Cornish game hens, and our elk ribs on top. Okay, what we're making now is we're just going to make a very quick and simple vegetable dish, kind of with an Italian flavor. We're going to take zucchini, yellow squash, cauliflower, broccoli, red peppers, green peppers, purple onion. We're just going to slice them, throw them in the Dutch oven, mix them up with a little Italian seasoning. And for a cooking liquid, we're going to go back to the bottle of white wine that we used in our Cornish game hens. We're going to finish that bottle in there. Okay, there's our birds simmering along nicely. And these are the vegetables, and we'll take a quick peek at them. Hot bread to me makes a meal. Of course, it doesn't do a lot for your waistline at times. One of the real keys to baking in a Dutch oven is what we call a smell test. If it smells done, it's done. If it smells burned, it's burnt. If you can't smell, it's not done. We're going to start and make a pineapple apricot upside down cake. We've got our syrup and butter in the bottom of the pan there. We've let it simmer for a minute. We're just going to take pineapple rings and lay in the bottom of the Dutch. And now inside each pineapple ring, we'll put a half of an apricot. To some, Dutch oven cooking seems like a lot of work. And like any other meal that takes a lot of preparation, the end results are usually worth it. So dinner's done. Let's set up and eat. Start here with some elk ribs, one of our baked potatoes. Okay, and here we have one of our Cornish game hens. We'll finish dinner off with a side of our vegetables. Right there. Dutch oven dinner. To finish off dessert, we're going to take our upside down cake. Let's see if it turned out. There is the pineapple apricot upside down cake. You know, people used to think Dutch oven cooking is hard. I hope that what you've seen here shows you that anybody can do it and you can make anything you want in your Dutch oven.
Most mornings, Mother Nature provides us with a real live spectacular. As we say goodnight, photographer Bill Crum provides us with probably the best seats in the house, very near Stanley.